So if you're watching this video, you're probably wondering how Forza Motorsports 8, or just the title of Forza Motorsports, is on the PC, specifically for Ultrawide, because you're probably seen a lot of reviews specifically talking about the Xbox or the Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X. This is going to be fully PC gameplay. I play on Ultrawide on the 21:9, 3440 by 1440p monitor, and I'm going to be talking you through the entire game, what I think about the career mode, what I think about the multiplayer. I'm going to be running benchmarks and showing you how it runs on the PC and specifications. I'm going to be talking about the lighting, everything. So if you're interested in that and interested in other Forza content, please subscribe and hit that bell, and let's get right into the content. So maybe you're getting into Forza Motorsports in 2023 for a single-player experience, or you're excited about the career mode and you want something like you had in Forza Motorsports 3 or 4. Well, I'm sorry to say it, guys, but if you're an old-school Forza fan, this isn't going to really be up to the standards that we had in previous entries. The Builders Cup and all the different cups that you're going to be having in career mode are really just a series of 3 to 4 races, and then you'll start another race with the same basic drive avatar, but that's about it. Like, even though your guy is basically the same throughout the races, you really don't feel any connection, and the races just give you a chance to drive different vehicles, so they're more of a tutorial to the different classes of vehicles rather than being an ongoing career. Also, the rewards feel really lacking compared to multiplayer, and I just can't really recommend doing the career mode all that much. Another thing that I think really pulls the single player aspect of the game down is the AI. The AI is very, very inconsistent. If you start in the near back of the pack, a lot of times you can pass up to 10 to 12 cars literally on the first lap. However, as races get longer and longer, the leaders will pull off to such an extent that passing them becomes nigh on impossible. So for a single player experience, I really don't recommend Forza Motorsports with how it is geared right now, because honestly, I really don't feel like you're going to be getting that much money out of it. I would say there's around 20 to 30 hours of single player content here, and they will be regularly dropping more cups, but just be aware that these aren't really a dedicated career, but really a series of mini events that are just linked together artificially. So unfortunately, for people that like the single player or career mode, I really can't recommend this product at the current time. Now I wanted to move on to the driving assist and the different options you have. You have a fully customized option in here where you can change your traction control, stability, shifting from manual clutch. You can change your braking from ABS to non-ABS, partially assisted, fully assisted. The assist in this game are absolutely fantastic, guys. I would recommend turning the assist to minimal assist and then basically just learning how to play that way. I think that's the funnest way to play it. But honestly, you can have a person that's never had a racing games in their hands before, have them play this and they will have a blast. Or you could have somebody that's mainly into sim racers like Assetto Corsa or iRacing, and I think they're still going to have an absolutely fantastic time. For the controller, which is what I'm playing on, I think that this is a very, very good product in terms of the driving assist and the generalized handling. So this was a pretty short segment, but I did want to touch on that because I think it's somewhere that Forza really did it right and did a very, very good job. So what about the multiplayer or the online functionality? Well, I'm happy to report that the multiplayer is one of the strongest parts of this game. It really does feel like it is the heart and soul of this title, but there are things you need to be aware of. One of the biggest things that is a change from older Forza titles is you used to be able to play in different car classes by going into different hoppers. So let's say you wanted to play a B-class car, you could drop into that hopper, but let's say you wanted to switch over to S, you could just switch into a different hopper. This has been totally eliminated. There's a series of featured that stay and also rotating daily playlist. So this allows you to find matches quite quickly, and the matches are quite fun. But let's say you wanted to play a C series class car and you actually wanted to basically jump in that hopper. Today, you may not have that option. So this is something you really need to be aware of, and it does make you have to play more cars and actually be more versatile in your racing. So if you just like one specific car style, or you like to play a multiplayer in a specific class all the time, you have to be aware of this, that this may not be an option, and this may seriously hurt your enjoyment at the current time. Another thing to really understand is how these events actually play out. And what they are is they're actually real-time events that, let's say it's 6 p.m. in your region, 6 p.m. in the evening, you join, let's say 15 minutes before that event, and you do a series of practice laps that then go into qualifying laps. You can manually select when you want to qualify, and then you have an actual race. This really does feel very engaging, and I think was a very good way to do it, because it feels like you're actually practicing and qualifying with the same people you're racing against, so it builds in a sense of immersion, and I really do like this. One important thing to know, though, is that the loading times, even though I have a Gen 4 SSD, the loading times in multiplayer can be quite long, which is kind of crazy, and there are numerous bugs, and I've had at least nearly a dozen crashes in my review time. So that is something to be very, very aware of. You should expect at least several crashes on a daily basis, and that is something that is a huge negative to the game, and hopefully Turn 10 is actively working on with a day one patch, because it's absolutely unacceptable for a game to be this buggy and to crash so much. So now I wanted to talk about the features and cars and let you know what I think about this. Honestly, guys, if you're getting this on the Game Pass or Standard Edition, you're getting 20 tracks, you're getting over 500 cars. I played all the way back from Forza Motorsports. This is a really, really great experience, guys. Don't let people fool you. There is a car for everyone here. There's over 500 cars. With the CarPG mechanics and how you actually have to basically level up a car, I do think that forces you to be a little bit more attached to each individual car and to drive it, and just not to test drive a new car every single day. So that's something you need to know and be aware of. Basically, they're trying to get you to form an attachment to each car. But if you want a Ferrari, if you want a Lambo, whatever you want in this game, you can find. If you want a Subaru, I personally love Subarus. There's plenty of Subarus. So you're going to have plenty of selection, and I think the only people that aren't going to be happy with the car list or track list are those people that are super fans and they want a very specific car, or they love the certain track. The track list being at 20 is a little bit on the short side, but I honestly think the tracks that were given to us were very, very good, and we're going to be getting more tracks on a monthly basis. Although I do think it's very possible the developers intentionally held back certain tracks to then basically drip feed us every month. So this isn't something I really like, but honestly, I think the tracks included are really good. In terms of the feature set, with the Rivals playlist, with the multiplayer, with the single player, you're going to have a ton of content, and I think that for especially the Standard or Game Pass edition, this game is absolutely worth it. In terms of the Premium edition, that's more debatable. You really need to think about how many hours you're going to put into this game, and if you're going to play for 100 hours plus, because I use a benchmark of having about $1 per hour be a very successful game. However, I want to note some of the performance issues that this game has currently, and the crashes that I've already mentioned. So now let's move on to the performance section of the video. So now probably the part of the video most people are interested in, which is the graphics and benchmarking on this ultra-wide system. So I want to tell you my system spec, which is a 13th generation Intel 13700K that is overclocked, and a RTX 3080 Ti from EVGA that is also similarly overclocked. This is in the top 5% of buildable systems, so really my graphics card not being a 4090 is the only thing that I would say pulls it down a little bit. I also have 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM and a Gen 4 SSD that is very, very, very speedy. So what I was getting in terms of the frame rates was honestly atrocious, guys. As you can see, my estimated VRAM usage was not very high, but regardless of what I put it on, if I turned DLSS off and had tons of aliasing, which I wouldn't recommend, I would definitely recommend doing ultra quality with DLAA in terms of image modifiers. But regardless, if I was running native resolution, DLSS, performance, quality, it didn't seem to matter. I was getting around 60 frames a second in game. DLSS doesn't seem to be implemented very, very well for this game, and I don't believe this is a CPU benchmark issue. I think there's actually something very wrong in the game. The performance is quite poor, guys. It is quite poor. Even in single-player gameplay, I oftentimes had the frame rate go down to the mid-30s, and there's constant stuttering, guys. The stuttering is out of control on this game. The ultra-wide and triple monitor support is very good, which is really commendable. I think the ultra-wide looks incredible, and another thing I really wanted to note for the game's favor is the night racing, the water effects, and the HDR. Specifically, the HDR is absolutely fantastic in this game and looks beautiful. So in terms of the graphics themselves, I think the car models look a little bit muddy, and they do look washed out, especially in the noon or midday sun. They can really look washed out, and the colors can seem very muted. HDR definitely helps in this regard, but if you're playing it in SDR, be aware of that. That can be a real problem. I tried NVIDIA DLSS, I tried AMD FSR. I would not recommend FSR at all. It looks terrible. DLSS does look pretty good, but the issue is that it does not help your frame rate very much, which doesn't seem to make any sense. That's not typical for me, and I find that most games DLSS has a massive improvement, but on this game, oftentimes I was getting around the same FPS with DLSS on or off. So the only reason I would really recommend to keep it on is because the anti-aliasing support in this game is terrible. There is no FXAA, so you really are forced to run ultra quality DLAA to have any sort of anti-aliasing in this game. So that's something I wanted to note, but even though I do like the graphics and I think the HDR and widescreen implementation was really good on a 21:9 monitor, I think the frame rate and the stability of this game is absolutely gutter trash because I was getting so many crashes. The frame rate is so low for this system spec that I really think they did a terrible job optimizing this game. And I want to note that, guys, I would highly recommend if you're getting into this game, just get the Game Pass for the first month or two. Complain on the forums, really make them see that they have serious optimization issues because the PC performance is not being talked about enough, and we need to get this fixed because this is absolutely unacceptable on the PC. These frame rates are atrocious. So hopefully this gave you some guidance, guys. You have my full system specs here. I believe I mentioned it, but just to make sure, it's a i7 13700K again, RTX 3080 Ti. I have 32 gigabytes of DDR RAM, so I shouldn't be having any problems with this game. But again, most of the time I was running under 60 frames a second, even with DLSS turned up to ultra performance, which doesn't make any sense. So what are my final thoughts about the game? Do I think Forza Motorsports in 2023 is worth your money? I do think it's worth your money, but primarily I would recommend getting it on the Game Pass like I've already talked about. If you're a single player or career style gamer, you probably want to give this a hard pass or just play on the Game Pass because I do think there's only 20 to 30 hours of content for you and it is not worth the full purchase price of $69.99 USD. I do think if you're primarily a multiplayer gamer, you're going to have a lot of fun and this is absolutely worth the purchase price. I will say I'm going to be making a lot of content on this game, so please hit that like and subscribe, and definitely hit that notification bell. But ultimately, guys, I think what you think about the game is going to vastly come down to what you're expecting. If you're expecting a sim-like racer, I think you're going to really get your money's worth here, and you're going to be super happy. Ultimately, there's a car for everyone, there's a race type for everyone, but the performance and the benchmarking issues in this game in terms of just the crashes, the bugs, and the tons of performance issues and poor frame rate on PC, especially with DLSS performance, is really something that holds the game down and prevents me from fully recommending it. So what I would say, guys, is if you can hold off for a month or two, just like most AAA game releases, it's going to get much better after a couple months when they iron out all these bugs. But I am having a lot of fun, and I really would like you to hit that like and subscribe because I'm going to be making a lot more content specifically for Forza Motorsports, and I do think the game is overall quite good, even though it has serious performance and optimization issues.